Be unchanged with and without. When I say that, I really mean in a physical sense, and also a spiritual sense, I guess. In the sense that I think spiritually, in the way that we feel, in the way that we think, in the way that we live our lives, all of that internally, it's important that we allow that to be unchanged, whether or not we have something physically or we lack it physically. Because I think that having goes beyond just physically owning something. Having goes beyond being able to hold something with your hand, being able to grasp it in your hand. I think that having is a very spiritual thing. Having is almost about aligning yourself spiritually with that thing. So when I say be unchanged with and without, I mean in the sense that I think it's important that we align ourselves in a position of having rather than a position of wanting. And I think that in doing so, we then allow having in the physical world to actually happen. You know, it's something that, it sounds a bit like an experimental idea, I guess. But I'm really just starting to understand how important it is that we almost need to give ourselves something before the world gives it to us. Or at least before we have it in the world. Because I'm starting to understand, and I'm really now understanding the fact that we don't have control over anything outside of us. We don't have control over, the pencil that we write with, the computer that we type on, the ground that we walk on. The only thing that we have control over is ourselves internally. And even when I say ourselves, I don't even mean our physical circumstances, because I can't add another hair to my head. We don't have control over the things outside of us. We may have influence over them, but we don't control them. And it's not our job to control them, it's God's job. But what we do have control over is our internals, is our spirit, is our minds. God doesn't judge us based on our external circumstances, but rather what we do to ourselves internally. So it's about recognizing that in having the ability to control yourself internally, in having the ability to change the way that you think, change the way that you feel, influence your spirit. It's about recognizing that you could put yourself and your spirit in a position of having, rather than a position of wanting. Putting yourself in a position of an abundance rather than a position of lack. I've said this story before, but when I was younger, whenever something would not be working, or whenever something wasn't going the way that we wanted it to, the adults around me would always say, oh no, never say, oh, this isn't working. You should always just be thanking God because it is working. Even though in a physical sense it isn't. And I'm now understanding it's not necessarily solely about the words that we say. It's not necessarily just about repeating it over and over again, but it's about feeling the gratitude for something working. It's about feeling the gratitude for having something that you may not have in the physical world yet. And I think that understanding that is really understanding that having isn't about physical at all. Having is about being spiritually aligned. Being in a position internally of having. In a position where you do already own something, even if the physical world may not show that to you. So I'm really just starting to understand that a big part of that is being unchanged with and without. And when I say with and without, I mean in the physical sense. Because I think that if we align ourselves with having something internally, then regardless of whether we have it in the physical world, we'll be exactly the same. Maybe not in a physical sense, like I said. In the sense that maybe the actions that we take will literally be different because we don't own something physically. But I mean internally, I mean spiritually, I mean mentally as well. That we'd be exactly the same whether or not we had it or not. At least in the physical world. So I think it's so important that we be unchanged. We almost be unfazed by whether or not we have something physically or not. Because the physical world is not all that there is. And having is not about owning something. It's not about holding it in your hand. Because regardless of whether you could hold something in your hand or not, you can't control it. Like I said, you can't add another hair to your head. You can't control anything outside of yourself. So having's not about physical, it's about the spiritual. It's about aligning yourself spiritually in the position of abundance rather than in the position of lack. And in doing so, we then allow God's will to be done in our lives. We allow God to then put those things or give those things to us in the physical sense. But I think a really big part of that is being unchanged, whether or not we have it physically or not. It's almost in the sense that when you stop caring, when you stop being emotionally invested, when you stop being spiritually invested in the physical world, whether you have what you want or not, that's when it finally appears to you. It's like when we were younger and we were playing video games, and when we acted like we didn't care, then it would load faster. I think it's exactly like that. But it's not about being in a position of ignoring or in a position of fear of looking and recognizing your physical circumstances. But it's about being spiritually aligned in a position of having. It's almost about seeing yourself and seeing the world and feeling the world and feeling yourself as if you already had whatever it is that you want. And I think that in doing so, we literally become unchanged in whether we have it physically or not. Maybe our physical circumstances change. Maybe the way that we act literally changes. Because, for example, if you don't have a car and then you want a car, I mean, if you have a car, obviously you're going to drive places. While if you don't have a car, you can't drive places. But spiritually, it's about being exactly the same. It's about being completely unchanged. It's about seeing yourself the way that you would see yourself if you had with everything that you wanted. And in doing so, we allow God's will to be done in our lives. So that if it is God's will for us to have it, then we will have it in a physical world. But it's something that we've already given to ourselves spiritually. The Bible verse I have for this video is taken from Matthew 25, verse 29. And it says, "For whoever has will be given more, and they will have abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken away." So I think that the scripture could be, interpreted a multitude of different ways. But specifically in relation to this video, I think this verse could be talking about the spirit versus the physical. In the sense that if you have something spiritually, then it can be given to you, or it will be given to you physically. But if you lack spiritually, then even what you have physically will be taken away from you. It's almost in the sense that you don't appreciate something until you don't have it. Because you've already accustomed yourself to having it spiritually. But then if you allow yourself to be in a position of lacking spiritually, then it will be taken away from you. The last point I have to make, it's almost like how there can be, joyful and peaceful homeless people, while there can be depressed billionaires. If you look at it from a worldly standpoint, the billionaire has way more. So how could they almost feel that they don't have enough, while the homeless man feels that he has everything that he needs, everything that he could ever want? It's in that sense that we almost need to align ourselves with having, regardless of what we have physically. And in doing so, we then allow physical things to be given to us by God. But it's not up to us to give it to ourselves physically. It's not up to us because we can't control the world. We can't control the physical. The only thing that we can control is ourselves. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. And have a great day.